So, so Chip,
Yeah.
when we were in Baja, and for those of you who don't know me, I went to a cohort that ended on February 23rd, so it was very recent. And near the end of that, there's in our workbook, there's a question about what is wealth. This question came up, and I approached Chip afterwards, and we had a little conversation about this. And I said that the workbook and the fellow who made the contribution, Douglas Soy, he had a really nice piece about all the hangups that we have about money. And I mentioned, well, what's I think missing and what we could talk about was what we could do about money. And that's what launched us into this conversation. And then right after that, COVID hit. And what that's done for me, and I think for everybody I've been talking with, and everybody that I spent my career working with, is brought into question, what do we value more than money? So I'll share this real briefly as background. Those people in my cohort know this, but I was a financial advisor, started in 1984, and been at this for a long time. Fast forward, because of the last recession, I went from a net worth that was in an 8-figure net worth to a minus 8-figure net worth through a series of events in my life. But that caused me to really look at what money is and what it means. And I think coming out of that, you know, there are times where I miss the money, but the wisdom gained from that, I think, has led to this in a way that I could never have imagined. So I'm quite grateful for it. And so from that has emerged this train of thought, which is, as a result of COVID-19, what do you now realize that you care about more than money? And to me, that conjures up a bunch of things. I think Diane Johnson mentioned that just in our sharing previously about caring. I think that it brings to fore a lot of our things that come to mind when we practice gratitude for the things we still have. So what I'm going to talk about here real briefly is gratitude. And I'm going to go through this quickly since we don't have a lot of time, but this model is a model that I use in my work. And just as a side comment, I had planned originally to do another workshop a week from today to go into these things a little bit more. Now that's going to become a bit of a necessity because of just circumstances, but I invite any of you who are interested in these things to join me again next week, and we'll go into this in more detail. But very briefly, this green triangle is what we use for gratitude. It begins with respect.
Ron, we can't see your at least I can't see your deck yet. So.
Correct. Yep, we can just see your Zoom screen. So you might want to, if you can get to the, might want to reduce the Zoom screen, minimize that, and get back to the.
Actually, all he has to do is share his screen and go into the tab that he needs to go in.
We're viewing your screen, so yeah, if you just pull up on your laptop just the deck.
It's up. I can see it. I'm reading it.
Actually, if I might tell you what you need to do is you need to go to share your screen, and then when you choose to share your screen, it lets you choose which one of all your windows open on your computer you want to share.
Yeah, sometimes
So
you have
there you go. Success.
Got it.
All good.
Yeah.
Okay, like I was saying, and of course, this is you know, this is kind of apropos for everything that we've been doing today, which is nothing is going quite the way we had planned it. And so in keeping with that theme, this diagram, which I know is a little overwhelming, but if you focus on the green triangle in the middle, this is meant to be a diagram for gratitude, okay? And it begins with respect at the bottom, appreciation in the middle, and generosity at the top. And again, I don't have time to go through this in any detail just because of the timing of everything that's transpired today. But I will say this, is that if you think about the work that Teddy does, he implores all of us to begin with loving ourselves and respecting ourselves. And that emanates out into the world. And then much of our work is about appreciating what it is that we have, especially in times like this. And so this diagram, I think you can see it points from the word appreciation points to the left. This is an acronym, if you remember, POTENT, that stands for these words: people, opportunities, things, experiences, nature, and thoughts. I went through that very fast. We'll come back to that in just a second.
And we'll make sure, Ron, we'll make sure that this is in the notes at the Lily, if you can make sure that this is added to whatever we're sending out to people afterwards.
Absolutely.
Yes, and then at the top is generosity. The top is generosity. So if you think of that as a sequence, respect, appreciation, and generosity, they're all related, and they're all related to gratitude. In this worldview, everything else is not gratitude. And I want to, again, conjure up Teddy's work. About 10 days ago, he did a meditation about greed, hatred, and delusion. And I think if you think in terms of greed, hatred, and delusion, which is quite prevalent in the world, especially during this COVID-19, I think you'll see that a big part of the antidote is gratitude in this model. And what I'm going to do real quickly, and again, I apologize for my contribution to the chaos today, but whatever we can do to unwind that, either next week or in the subsequent few weeks, believe me, I've given a lot of thought to this, and I believe there's something to this. So what I'd like to do here, if I can get this thing to move, well.
Go to the next slide.
Well, I'm trying to.
Okay.
All right, well, so what I was going to do here, the next slide is a slide of Maslow's hierarchy. So Chip, what I'd like to do is hand it off to you and talk a little bit about how Maslow's hierarchy, particularly how survival needs have come into play here with COVID-19, and how addressing those needs is really an imperative at this point in time before we can talk about what we can do creatively with money and where money fits in.
Before we do that, could you tell us what MINT means? Diane Johnson was asking, what M-I-N-T?
Okay, well, again, next week I'll go into this,
Okay.
but it's generosity is time, energy, attention, resources. That's tiers. And resources are money, ideas, networks, things, technology, and talent.
Wow, okay. That's a lot there. So I'll be brief to bring it back to you. So basically, everybody knows Maslow's hierarchy of needs, 5 levels. There's really 3 themes. And these 3 themes basically relate to life. There's either survival, succeed, or transform. So the physiological and safety needs are survival needs. The social belonging and esteem needs are success needs. And then self-actualization is a transformation need. What's really important in a downturn, and especially when you're dealing with your own emotions being all over, is to get the survival needs addressed. But true wealth is not about, having your survival needs met. I mean, yes, that allows you to start moving up that pyramid. And frankly, at a time when your survival needs are not being met, you have to look for every option you have. And when I say your survival needs, I mean your emotional survival needs as well. One of the things that we've talked about is the fact that the emotional survival needs can be helped by having emotional insurance. And emotional insurance is part of what MEA is meant to be. And it's part of the reason we did our alumni survey of you, and so many of you filled it out, because what we want to look at is how does MEA Alumni Association, how could it be an insurance policy for your emotions? But what's interesting is as you move up from, the basics of life, money and having enough money, having enough air, having enough water, food, you move up the pyramid. And as you move up the pyramid, you move to the things that are actually more valuable in the long run. When someone's on their deathbed, they don't usually talk about how much money they have. They talk about the things that actually are connected to other people. So you move through those success needs, and then at the top of that pyramid is self-actualization. But Maslow later in life actually turned it into self-transcendence. And he basically said, the thing that really matters in life, what really creates wealth, is your sense that you have actually delivered and generated for other people something that has allowed them to actually move up the pyramid themselves. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You go up that pyramid yourself, and you help bring people up with you. Back to you, Ron.
Yeah. So really, kind of taking off on that is, if you take a look at this statement, after satisfying your basic needs, look the lower levels of that pyramid, then money is for discovering and rediscovering those things that bring you happiness, fulfillment, meaning, and joy in every phase of your life. And so that's the basic premise, this shift from wealth as we have come to know it in our society. Typically, the societal narrative, which is having lots of money, material possessions, status, power, etc., and transitioning that to thinking in terms of those things that bring you these higher levels in Maslow's pyramid. So it really comes down to, what do you care about most? And so what I'd like to do is show you now another diagram that I use in my work and that I've spent quite a bit of time developing and using with literally thousands of clients over my career. And it's this. If you can see that. So remember on the previous diagram about gratitude, I had people, opportunities, things, experiences, nature, and thoughts on the left. And that was tied to appreciation. So if you think about the things that you care about most, what you can do is then take those things and put them into these 4 categories. So I'm going to start in the upper left with core, if you can see that. Core are those things that I think, if you think about now, in the COVID era, one of the things that people value most is their health and well-being, the temple of their soul, which is their body, right? And if you have your health, it's something that you cherish more so than ever before. And if you don't, they have a saying that, when you don't have your health, that's really all you really want, is to get your health back. So that your health, then if you think further, going back to people, right now, I think all of us are aware of the people that matter most to us. The people that either you're fortunate to be with, or those people who you're isolated from, that you can't see, that you really care about a lot. And certainly for me, I could use a little oxytocin right now from this isolation. So to me, it really brings to the forefront the people that are most important. Then opportunities, the ones we don't have, like I miss the freedom to roam and to get out and do things. And I also am very grateful for the opportunities I do have still. Things, material possessions, and then experiences. I want to go to the top right, because this, I think, is the essence of MEA. MEA, I think, is about discovery. It's about, Chip, as you might say, instead of proving, it's about improving. It's about growth. It's that growth mindset that you talk about so much. And I consider that to be an essential part of true wealth. If we're going to be a wisdom school, a wisdom community, it's when we should think about that learning and that growth as part of our true wealth. And that money, which is down in the lower left, is there to support that, rather than to be an end in and of itself. And then then I'll go to the bottom right, which is contribution. Another way of looking at that is generosity, which was in our discussion about gratitude. Generosity, and Teddy, again, you talk about this as well, is that the part of the antidote to greed, hatred, and delusion is generosity. And I think part of the wealth that one experiences in giving and in contributing and being our best selves and so doing is the joy that one experiences from giving. So this to me is what I've come to call true wealth. It's what we've come to build our view of money and finance and what it could be and what I think MEA is all about. So let me pause there. And
So Ron, we have about 3 or 4 more minutes.
Yep. So let's do this. We had Chip. You had a slide at the end that you wanted to talk about. I could throw that to you, or you can talk about Ikigai. What would you like to talk about?
I think why don't we just wrap up, since for those who actually have the MEA workbook, look at the Ikigai on page 114, if I'm not mistaken, and you'll find that's a beautiful way of looking at true wealth. When you can feel like you are doing something that it feels like it's your calling, and maybe midlife is not about crisis, it's about calling, finding that calling, and it's something that you enjoy doing, it's something that the world needs, and it's something that the world can pay you for. It's great. So again, to spell that word, it's IKIGAI. Feel free to look it up if you don't have it in your workbook. It's a great way and a great exercise of how to actually think about what it is you're meant to do. So, in fact, I think there it is right there. I think for the sake of time, I'm going to say we do a wrap here and see if there's any questions maybe from the group for you, Ron. Let's see if anybody has a question. Actually, first of all, just to make sure everybody sees this with this last slide. So Ron's going to be doing a Zoom workshop on Saturday, May 16th, so a week from today, and we'll go deeper into this. And there's no cost to that, Ron. And we're not marketing you, but for those who want to dive deeper, you can. On
the contrary, what I'd ask is if people, if they get anything out of it, if they would consider making a contribution to the employee fund, MEA. That link is there on that slide, but I'm not asking for anything. I'd certainly encourage people to make a contribution to that.
Let's see if we have 1 or 2 questions. And Diane has her hand raised. Let's go ahead and have Diane ask the question.
Perfect. Yeah, Ron, one of the things that I'm curious about what you're seeing in your clients about this reframing of wealth, because one of the things about COVID is that it's made so clear and evident the fault lines around the unequitable distribution of wealth. Mm-hmm. So what's your sense about of the system that perpetuates the huge distinctions of resources, given that we're now living in COVID-19?
It's a great question. One of the things that certainly MEA emphasizes is to work on the things and try to focus on the things you can control versus the things you can't control. And so there's several levels. I think at the individual level, I've been on both sides of this, where I've been very poor and quite wealthy. And I think that the biggest challenge for me is to I work primarily with financial advisors, is to help them help others see that the path to meaning and joy in life is through contribution, is to helping others. And I think it's tough for now. I think those of us who are business owners, it's hard. I know, Chip, you're going through this, and trying to keep people employed, but that's really one of the biggest contributions that people can do if they have money, is to keep people employed. For those people who don't, there's really, I mean, 2/3 of the people are experiencing anxiety about their futures and about their financial futures. So a big part of that is getting their emotions under control, and then getting their priorities straight in terms of what's essential. And, a lot of us have bought into this idea that what's essential is to appear like we have money, or to have a bigger house or more cars and things like that. And when you get down to it, and I had to go through this myself personally, is that sometimes it takes something like this for you to realize that if you have a roof over your head and food to eat and close relationships, that's a start. And hopefully everybody has that. And if they don't, then that's where there's no shame in reaching out to others for help.
We have time for, thank you. One last question. If anybody else has a question, just raise your hand using the raising hand function at the footer of the of your screen. Well, if there are no other questions, let me just say one last thing. David Brooks is a New York Times reporter. I don't always love his politics. Let me start by saying that. But I actually appreciate him as a human. I've actually met him at the TED conference, and at just a couple times. And what I actually really appreciated is a few years ago, he wrote an op-ed based upon resume values or eulogy values. What are the morals that define you, and what actually gives a person a sense of meaning and wealth? And I'd highly recommend you look for David Brooks' New York Times article on resume versus eulogy. And I think what you'll find is that at the end of the day, the things that are most meaningful and important to you in your life are the things that you want said at your eulogy, not the things that actually appear on your LinkedIn resume. And that's particularly true during a time like this.